welcome to Jen, who is joining us at 6 a.m. from Los Angeles. It's now close to 6:30. She's with us from 6 a.m. Thank you, Jen, for that. And when I'm introducing her, I'll tell you more about her, how generous she is. Before that, welcome all to this session, L&D session on organizational coaching and the challenges and ethics. While we are waiting for others to join, Kannan, would you like to introduce our chapter and do the opening, please?
Yeah, thank you, Aruna. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are joining from. Thank you for being here with us today. And I'm Kannan Swaminathan from the ICF Chennai Charter Chapter. And today we have a very interesting topic and a very accomplished speaker with us. You'll hear the details very soon. Before we begin, I thought it's important to spend a couple of minutes to tell you what we do in the chapter. So as ICF Chennai Charter Chapter, so we are here to promote coaching, coaches, community, all of that. So we keep having these kind of programs that enable our coaches to upskill themselves and spread the awareness of coaching and support the community. So we have a lineup of programs to showcase your abilities, opportunities for you to learn periodically. All of that is available through these monthly learning and development webinars that we host. We have a special opportunity for people to showcase their writing skills, a blog opportunity. We also have an opportunity for you to contribute to the chapter by book reviews. And if you are very thorough with, or if you have invented some new frameworks and tools and technologies to enhance the impact of coaching, so we have an opportunity for you to showcase your tools as well as coachability program. So if you are interested in knowing further about any of what we do in the Chennai chapter, I suggest you get in touch with either of us, either Aruna or me or Neetu. And we would be very happy to have you as part of the chapter. And in the next 60 days, we have two important events that are going to take place. So one is International Coaching Week happening in the middle of May. We have an exciting lineup of events curated exclusively for you. Please look out for those announcements, which will come out very soon. We have another coach development initiative that is on the cards and will be announced very soon, is reciprocal coaching program, a resounding success in the previous years, wherein you as a coach get to practice your coaching skills and avail the real experts guidance through mentoring and supervision. So we're packaging all of that, and please look out for those opportunities, and the announcements will be made in the next couple of weeks. Okay. And today we have this very interesting topic. I'm sure most of you would relate to this topic. And if you are in coaching and if you are coaching leaders in organizations, and if you have corporate clients as part of your portfolio, this is a very real challenge for all of us, right? And this is where I think Jen's wisdom is going to help us feel more confident, enhance our competencies, and handle these situations with a lot more masterful way, so to say. So the lines are actually very blurred, and it doesn't matter whether you are new to coaching, whether you are in coach training programs, or you are an experienced coach. So these challenges that this particular session will address will come in very different ways, in very different forms at different points in time in your career. So I would welcome you to take active participation in today's webinar. It's going to be not a PowerPoint driven lecture, but it's going to be a lot more interactive session where you get opportunity to practice what we are learning from Jen. And moreover, this particular session will also give you the continuing coach education units. So these are approved by Global ICF. So in about 10 days from now, if you have attended this live session in full, you will get the CCEUs automatically. Okay. So it's very important that you attend the live session to the maximum possible extent that is required by the global guidelines in order for us to provide the CCEU certificates for you. These CCEUs can be used for renewal of your credential, and this has both a core competency element as well as a resource development element. Without much further explanation, so I again welcome you all for this webinar today. Aruna, would you do the introduction of Jen and we move on to the session?
Sure, Kannan. And before that, thank you for introducing all the ICF programs, and we look forward to all your active participation in RCP and our International Coaching Week. So before we move on, Kannan spoke about the CCUs. Happy to share with you this session carries 0.75 coaching competence, continuing coaching education units, and 0.75 resource development units. As is the usual practice, you need to fill in the Google feedback form, which we put in the chat box. The link will be put in the chat box towards the end of the session. And just to avoid confusion, we have done away with the opening and closing password. But as Kannan mentioned, we look forward to your presentation in the activities, which actually will, help you get the CCUs. So to claim your CCUs, please fill in the form, submit it, and please fill the correct email address for us. Sometimes we get back saying that in incorrect address. So please fill in the correct email address. And it will take around 10 days minimum because we are having 80 CCU requests. So it will take around 10 days minimum for us to process and send it to you. We'll certainly send it to you. And yes, now it's an honor to introduce Jen. And as Kannan has already set the context, today's session is about organizational coaching. And we all know that how we find ourselves walking a tightrope, balancing the coach's growth, the sponsor's expectations, and we have to protect the confidentiality. All these things happen during the organizational coaching, right? So in this session, Jen will help us navigate these tricky issues, and we will get more clarity and confidence. So to introduce Jen, Jen Wilson PCC is an executive coach, mentor, and strategist who specializes in coaching leaders and the coaches who work with them. With over 25 years of experience in leadership, coaching, and training, she helps professionals gain clarity, elevate their impact, and drive meaningful change within organizations. As the founder of Jen Wilson International, Jen partners with coaches transitioning from leadership into executive coaching, equipping them with the strategies, ethical frameworks, and business acumen needed to succeed in corporate environments. She mentors coaches in complex organizational dynamics, setting boundaries and positioning themselves as strategic partners while also guiding senior executives in creating lasting impact. Through targeted coaching, training, and business development, Jen ensures that both leaders and coaches operate with confidence, integrity, and influence in high stakes settings. Apart from this, I would also like to share that Jen is a very generous person. She has created a leadership vault of more than 100 resources, and she shares it with people whoever approaches her and asks for it. And I am one of the recipients. Thank you, Jen, for that. And so let's all explore together how we can stay true to our coaching values, even under organizational pressure. Over to you, Jen.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. It is such a joy to be here. I always like to put my screen where I can see everybody's little boxes. And so good morning from Los Angeles. Good evening to those in the other end of the hemisphere that's here. One of the things I just love is I love when I get a chance to be in a community with fellow coaches. It feels like you're with family, even though you've not met before. And so our time together is really going to be a conversation. And I don't, as was mentioned, I don't have a long PowerPoint or anything. I have a couple exercises I will share on the screen, but really this is a conversation with all of us, so that when we come out, we all get to walk away with an insight. And I will ask you before we close. I always like to say, in addition to my formal background, I'm a very proud dog mom. I have 2 dogs that I spend a lot of time trying to wrangle here. And I always think that's part of who I am. And I'm a novice gardener. And what I've really been learning from gardening is it's really helping me learn more about my patients, about those values that I have in my that come into my coaching practice. As was mentioned, I come from a background of leadership. And during my time as a leader, I worked in the field of international education and international development. And I share that too because it makes it feel like I truly, truly am home in an international community. One of the things during my tenure in leadership is I had this wonderful opportunity to work with many innovative, high-performing teams. I learned how to, what it meant when we truly were committed to the work we were doing and committed to how we work together. I also worked and navigated very challenging toxic work environments where there was what was being said and then what was really happening. And for those that come out of leadership, you may be familiar with that kind of an environment. And so when I transitioned into coaching, I really became committed to helping leaders and teams create environments where people feel truly seen, they feel heard, and they are able to really thrive. And what I also knew is that leaders don't do that alone, and that they don't do it in isolation, and that coaches are the ones that really accompany them. But coaches, we can't do it alone either, right? And so today, a lot of my work is twofold, as was kind of mentioned before. I coach executives and leaders, navigating those complex systems, and I also mentor coaches who are stepping into work with leaders. And here's a few things that I've seen over the years of doing this. First, that many coaches are incredibly skilled in the one-on-one coaching and the one-on-one transformation. I've also know that we know how to hold space for others. We know how to accompany them on their journey of shifting perspectives. But once we step into the corporate or the nonprofit or the government systems, the game really changes, right? So now we're dealing with not only the one-on-one coaching, but we're dealing with red tape. Sometimes we're dealing with conflicting agendas, right? There's often unclear expectations, and the power dynamics are not always visible, right? And so they are, so these are the landscape that we walk into. Now, I want to get a sense of who's here. And so maybe we can open up the poll. And if everyone could just answer the poll, I'd love to know what the experience in the room is. And so you'll see it pop up. There we go. And just choose where you fall. If you fall between two, just choose the one that makes it feel more right for you now. Great. And if you're having an issue getting into the poll, you can drop a note in the chat. That's no worries. Wait just one more minute and then we can take a look at the results. All right, I think it's good. We can close the poll. All right. So let's see. Let me see if everyone, can you see the results on your screen? Let me help you out. So we have most people already work in organizations. This is wonderful. So my job is already done here. Just kidding. I'll keep going. And we have some folks new, that we have someone who's an internal coach, and there's others who are trying to get started. And I'm imagining all of us are constantly trying to build our business. So wonderful. All right. So kind of what I'm going to do next is we're going to use Menti, if everyone's familiar with that. And we'll drop the chat. I'm going to show it up on my screen here. And if we could put the link in the chat. I have a couple questions. Now, if you're new to Menti, it's okay because I'm going to bring it up and we have one question to answer first. And you can either scan the QR code or you can go to the link at the top, join on your web browser, joinmenti.com. There we go. We're seeing people come in. Can everybody see on their screen the question? If you could just give me a thumbs up that I know.
Yes, Jen, we can.
Okay, perfect. All right. And you should be able to see the actual quiz. I like to use my phone to do it. I find that the easiest way. And then what should come up are some questions. One question, very easy. What is your, there we go, favorite ice cream flavor? And you can enter in, and you see I gave 3 options to enter in 3 because lots of us like more than just one. Nice. And if you're new to using a Menti, what you know, when you're putting your answer in, the ones that are bigger, the words that are bigger means more people answered that. So we can see that vanilla and mango are leading the way. All right. Okay. All right. Sounds like everybody knows how to do this now. Oh, here we go. A few more. All right. This is making me want ice cream for breakfast, which, you know, I'm not against. So, okay, let's take a look at, so everyone knows how to do it. Is anyone, if you're having an issue getting in, you're welcome to answer in the chat to any of the questions. We're going to do 2 more. Ready to go? Let's do the next one here. Let's get the slide moving to the next. Here we go. All right, here's the next question. So what are the biggest challenges working with organizations? What are your biggest challenges that you're facing? And it should have changed on your screen. Yeah, pricing, appropriate information. And if you would rather come off mute and share, you're welcome to do that too. If it's harder to use the Menti, I would love to hear from anyone in the room.
Okay, I'll go since no one has taken the chance,
Yeah,
Jen.
no problem.
So, for me, it is balancing these expectations with respect to how much to share or how much not to share. Because the sponsor, the organization, the coachee, and of course, sometimes the coach is manager. So we do get those things. How is the coaching going on? Are they on track? So it's always a tightrope walk there.
Yeah, the walk of the tightrope. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? We have time for one more.
We have 2 responses on the chat as well.
Okay, great. Let me, if someone could read that.
You want me to read out?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Expect coaching to change overnight. That's the response we have on the chat. Other one is convincing coaching as an intervention itself.
Yes.
Jen,
And then I saw some, yes, please.
can I add?
Yeah.
Can I add more?
Yes.
Good evening, good afternoon to everyone, and good morning to you. I really face as an executive coach is being understood. I mean, the role of the coaching within the organization is not well received, well understood by the seniors. And this made it a challenge to proceed within the organization as internal coach. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So that not everyone has the same view of the perception on what the coaching engagement will be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And some of these are really great. Company wants to fix a problem, the sponsor coachee separation. There's a lot of them here, and I'll send this to you as a PDF after so you can send it out to the community of people who came. That's here. Great. Okay, let me stop sharing and so I can see everyone again. There we go. All right, so this is good. And I see a lot of the ones there that we're going to be touching on during our time together. We're really going to explore 3 core areas over the next about an hour and 5 minutes. We're gonna be looking at how we spot the tension. Where are the tension points through looking at some real world experiences. I call these ripped from the headlines. These are true experiences, some case studies of things both myself and other colleagues have experienced. Of course, the company and individuals are taken out to protect the innocent. Next, we're going to be looking at how we navigate with integrity, right? Looking at practical strategies on how we do that. And then third, this is really about strengthening the foundation of our coaching practices. So let's really dive into the heart of today's topic. I'm just 1 second moving a little bit of tech over here so I can see everybody. There we go. All right. So we know that there is a difference between individual coaching and the organizational coaching, right? It's not just the context, but it is the complexities that are involved. When we are coaching individuals, it's a one-on-one. It's private. The lines are often very clear, right? The client sets the agenda and they're really leading the way, and we contract with them directly. It's very straightforward. And of course, confidentiality, it's honored very easily, right? In that two-way relationship. But we also know inside organizations, it's really different. And I started to mention some of the complexities earlier, right? You might be coaching one person, but there are always many eyes watching the engagement. Sound familiar? And so in this dynamic, you might have the sponsor who's engaged, who's watching what's going on because they're funding it. You'll have HR sometimes who wants to have some level of reporting. And then performance reviews, in many cases, they loom in the background, even if you don't know them. And so the complexity is navigating these multiple the expectations of all these, of the multiple folks engaged. So I want to break down 3 of those tension points that come up. And I'd like to, let me just open up the chat over here so I can see it. Perfect. So the first one is around confidentiality versus transparency, right? So imagine this. I want you to imagine this, that you're coaching a leader, right? You're having one of those incredible engagements and those moments where insight happens, where the coachee finally is opening up about what truly is truly holding them back. And then you go back to your email and the sponsor has sent you a note. Hey, just checking in. What's going on with them? How's it going? So what is the ethical dilemma? You can drop it in the chat. What's the ethical dilemma? You can also come off mute too if that feels better to you. Confidentiality, right? That conflict. Yep, we got a lot of confidentialities. They want to share, but what's holding them back, right? How much do you share? How much don't you share, right? None, right? The question can be, thank you. The person who put that in there, the question can be answered without reaching confidence. I would love to hear what someone's done, how they would address that.
So I can go.
Would you like me to share?
Oh, okay.
No.
Saurabh, you want to go?
Yeah, I was the one who commented that.
Oh, okay.
And
Go
I
ahead.
mean, this is a very common question, and it can be answered simply in terms of how the coachee is being responsive, how they are sincere. And of course, I mean, all this has to be true in reality. So that and how they are really opening up to the process of coaching and how they are reporting progress without telling what that progress is. So there are many such statements, whichever is true, that can be made. So I can answer this email honestly without breaching confidentiality. That's my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And was there someone else who wanted to share as well?
Yeah. Meetu raised her hand and Sunanda. Meetu, you can go first.
Yeah. Yes. So when I came across such a scenario, I told the client they were aware that we have to submit some report to the third party. And in that case, I did ask my client, what are they comfortable with sharing, and letting them know that this is what I'm sharing. And if there is anything specific that they would not want me to mention in the report, they could tell me so.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So we have 2. Was there a third person? I couldn't tell.
Yes.
the sponsor. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. We can take one more and then we'll keep going.
Sunanda raised her. Sunanda?
Yeah. Hi, this is Sunanda. I haven't really encountered such a situation, but I think the way to go about it would be to either have the sponsor speak directly to the coachee, alternatively have a meeting with the sponsor and the coachee where the coachee speaks up and shares as to how they're benefiting from it, from the engagement.
That's great. That's great. So I really heard 3 things. The first was the around, there are many things we can say about the engagement without divulging the details. And a lot of times that also comes back to what your agreements were when you started during your alignment initial kickoff meetings. The second one, and was, I think Meetu, you were sharing about the co-creating what's shared with the client, right? Because everybody's in the know about the arrangement around the coaching engagement, and then there was the third offering, which is really encouraging the client to share with their sponsor whatever they would like to around the coaching engagement. That's great. So the second place, I see another hand up. Is that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have a question here.
For sure.
There is usually an instance where, when you start out with the client, you're able to also share with them what confidentiality could look like. And the fact that if there is a reporting that has to happen, we could state to them that, hey, we'll be sharing broad topics that got discussed, but not, the content and the details.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that I had a question, for you, that would that be okay for to meet confidentiality or not?
Yeah. So if what I'm hearing is like sort of setting the stage, like what is getting shared and what isn't. Did I hear that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
In
So
advance,
a lot of times, So a lot of times what I do, and I'm imagining what others are doing as well, is once something has been once we're off and running with a project, I do a number of designing alliance sessions, right? I do the stakeholder one, I do with the individuals, and confidentiality is always the number one thing. For me, confidentiality is one of my core values. So I talk about it a lot. It's written, it's also talked about, and then I know that I have to have a bit of a reminder in our check-in. So I really build that in so it's really clear up front. And if there is any conditions of the engagement around sharing, usually what I do is I take that and I separate it from the coaching, whether it's some kind of like here we co-create the goals together, those kinds of things. And so I think the spirit behind this is making sure it's so clear up front, beyond just in your agreements that you make or you're with the organizations and with the coachee around confidentiality, is to also talk about it. That's one of the areas I always highlight in conversations, even though I've written it multiple times. The second common tension is that sponsor influence. So let me ask the question, has anyone ever had a sponsor say something like, well, we need to make sure that this coaching leads to a promotion or an exit? Has anyone ever been in a situation like that? You can just raise your hand, drop it in the chat, use a different emoji, do the wave, whatever feels right to show. But yeah, we've all experienced, right? So yes, yeah. And so I often have to really say that that's not coaching. That's closer to succession plan. I always say it's succession planning, right? With a coaching wrapper. But that's actually what it is. And it's really easy to be pulled into that evaluator's role. It might sound something like, I know you can't tell me anything, but like, how are they really doing? Right? And so this is where we really have to uphold that coaching is developmental and it's not disciplinary. And that we actually, when we start to blur the lines, even if we're asked to give an off-the-record conversation, we are blurring it. And so again, next to confidentiality, this is the second thing I always make really clear when I'm going into the engagement. The third area of tension that comes up is that dual accountability, right? Who are we accountable for? And I actually think this is one of the hardest, right? Because ultimately, we know as coaches, we're accountable to the person that we're coaching, right? We know that that's where the relationship lies. But there's also the sponsor who brought us in. Sometimes there's HR that's involved. Multiple folks are connected to the engagement. And sometimes, and I actually find this happens pretty frequently if I'm not addressed it up front, is that the goals aren't aligned. And actually you can feel like you're in a tug of war. Does anyone who has experience with that? Has anyone had experience? Yeah. Amelia, would you mind sharing?
I think it falls sort of is connected to the disciplinary versus developmental piece as well. A stark sort of example comes to me I was working with a company where they had an employee that they thought was a problem. She struggled with relationships with colleagues, and they really wanted me to come in and help her be better at all of that. And she had a very different perspective on things. And so there is this sort of push and pull or tug of what different expectations were, what she felt she was, and what she was told she was, the reason she was getting coaching versus what they told me the reason she was getting coaching was. That was different even. And so the accountability towards the company versus towards my relationship with her, despite multiple conversations and trying to bring people around to the same page and set expectations, it was still a very challenging situation to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. What can I put you on the spot and even ask, like, how did you navigate it? What were things that you found really worked?
I think ultimately there are parts of it that didn't work, that nobody ended up being happy because there was too big of a divide. But continuing to bring in and remind about confidentiality, continuing to, stay committed verbally and actually with my coachee around, I am here for you. We are working, we're developing something together. This is what we've agreed to. And also coming back to HR was also the sponsor. So it was the same person, but there were political forces at play with people that I never got to speak to. And so continuously sort of navigating that with with the sponsor was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
is a sufficient answer, but
It's a great answer because it really illustrates all of a sudden you can be in this sort of soup, right? And I know for me,
Very soupy.
I currently started working with a company where it feels like I'm stepping on little landmines as I'm going along. And so really anchoring in those lines of communication. So here's some things I often do is I will always pre-set out very clearly, not only just the kickoff, right? So we've done all the paperwork, I've written everything down. Then I do sort of the alignment meeting in the beginning. I will always do a short alignment meeting with the coachee and the coach messaging the same things. And then I always plan to have a midpoint opportunity to reconnect with the sponsor. I build all of those in up front because I know that, and I know it both because I was a leader, your mind's going in lots of directions. And so being able to have those milestones to reconnect allows those places for there to be real communication that can be really, and everybody knows up front that these are happening. And we've all agreed about what we are communicating about. You know, these scenarios we're talking about, I always say they're not bad luck. These are actually situations that show up. And I'm sure we could spend hours talking about other nuances to them. But these three main tensions around navigating confidentiality and transparency, the sponsor's influence, and who we're really accountable for, they really hit some of the core of our core competencies, right? So a couple come into play and we started to mention them, and I want to tease them out for us so we have them. The first is the ethical practices, right? We demonstrate integrity in what we're doing. We manage conflicts of interest, and we do not share client information without permission, right? No matter how much people play. And it might mean that when you're getting into an engagement, if it feels that way, you might have to pause. Am I going to take this engagement or not, right? So if we're really, and I know I'm guessing for others like me, we're building businesses, and it could mean walking away from something. But what I've learned in my business, when I walk away, something more powerful shows up, right? And we probably all have stories around that. The next one is really embodying that coaching mindset as we're navigating situations. And it's really about that self-awareness and the continuing learning, right? That as we're in engagement, a lot of times we can start moving up to our heads, right? Especially if the coaching is part of a larger, so I do a lot of coaching one-on-one, team coaching, and then I do training with all of it. So my head's moving in a lot of directions. And I have to remind myself that I have to embody this coaching mindset, that if I'm feeling triggered by a request, which can happen, I have to make sure that I've really paused and I've reflected and I've gotten myself back into alignment, right? So that idea of going, okay, what's going on with me? What's happening? Let me address this situation maybe at a different point. I don't have to fire off the email right away. The third is that we establish and we maintain the agreements that we have, right? So this might be one of the most important parts of engagements, is that when we put together our agreements, our master service agreements, our one-on-one coaching agreements, that they're not just a legal document for many of us. What they are also is they're relational. They're talking about the relationship and how we're gonna be working together, making sure we have really key elements in it. Who's the client? Who is the client in the situation? Who's the sponsor and who's the client, each of their roles? And what's going to be shared and what's not shared, right? And so I might not have that detailed, but it's definitely part of the conversations. When do check-ins happen, right? What is the expectations? What are we agreeing to around our check-ins? And then lastly, what is the scope of the coaching, right? So to avoid the creep that happens, right? And I know for me, one of the challenges I always face, because the work is so personal, because I know how powerful it was when I was a leader, it's easy for me to get excited and start adding things on. And so there's a bit of that creep, right? And it goes outside of what the engagement is. And then the last competency that I always think about is cultivating trust and safety, because we know that without trust, nothing can move. Right? And that those moments, and that the moment that a coachee believes that might feel that trust is broken, they stop talking, right? And that can really end the work, and actually isn't really in service of the client. So I will often use language, especially in the beginning, around you're the client. And I remind them I'm only sharing updates that you and I have agreed on, so that the trust especially when they know that you've been brought in from the organization, that they know that trust is between the two of you. Any thoughts? I'm looking in the chat as well. Any tips? We saw that over half of you work in organizations. So other insights or tips or ways that you navigate some of these tricky situations?
Hi.
Yeah.
I think you covered all the points very well, Jen. These are the complexities that we work with. What has helped me in working with organizations is the clarity, the communication, and ensuring that we stick to the values that we have proposed earlier on. Communicate, and communicate it in writing, aligning them, bringing them together. Again, communicate the same, the principles and the ethics of coaching. I think we keep stressing it. But one thing which I found key was the ability to say no to an engagement where it is required, to have the courage and able to say it in a way that makes the client understand what makes the coach say no to this engagement. So giving that clarity to the client is extremely important, because many a times it is that the coachee is not ready. The client is not ready for a coaching engagement. It's not that there is something faulty in them. They are not ready. And we need to tell them very clearly when would they be ready and when do I really come into the picture. I felt that that was an important clarity that was needed for the client, rather than just feeling that, oh, the coach just declined this engagement. We declined this engagement because structurally you're not ready, financially you're not ready, or relationship wise, or I think system wise you're not ready. There is something else that needs to happen for you to be ready to get coached. And that's when that I felt was a powerful tool.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you shared that. One of the things that I do is I have a very clear practice, and it's part of the integrity of the work I do, is that before I take on any agreement, and we might be at the point of like getting ready to sign things, I have a non-negotiable requirement is that I coach everybody I'm going to coach one time first, for this very reason, to really make sure that we're truly aligned and that the person is ready for coaching. Because part of the integrity of the work is I don't want someone to pay me if somebody's not ready. And so I've actually found that it's allowed me to do a couple of things. Number one is help with the readiness. Number two is someone gets an experience with coaching, because I don't know about everyone else, but I know here being a coach means lots of things to lots of different people. And often I'll come into an engagement and someone say, oh, great, you're going to tell me what to do. I needed someone to do that. I'm like, but I'm not going to. So that's the first. The second is that it allows you to actually craft a plan that's really support of the client, right? And it might be that coaching isn't the time now, but there's a few other things, and then the coaching is ready. And then thirdly, you know that actually it's someone you can't coach. And I think we all we know that. So I think it requires a level of bravery to do that. So thank you for bringing that up. All right.
Is there time for another question?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
A follow-up to what you just shared actually is in that, doing a coaching session before you sign the contract. I have often done sort of an intro call that discusses coaching, sort of my approach, how they see coaching, what they want to get out of it, so on and so forth, but it isn't necessarily a coaching session. Do you see a distinction between the two in terms of the way you would want to approach it? And do you do both? Do you just have this coaching session? I don't know, if you could speak to that a little bit, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do is I do both. I first do an intro conversation where I talk about what coaching is. Because a lot of times what coaching with me is like. I answer their questions. I get a sense of what they're wanting to do with their coaching, right? What are they working towards? And then at that point, if it really feels right, I then schedule my one coaching session with them before we say yes. So I do like to do both, because I'm always looking for readiness. And are they committed to being different? We all know that when you start a coaching engagement, when you were being coached, you come out different, right? And so I do both. And that's a lot of learning, like, oh, I need to kind of slow down, go through this process, because by the time we get the engagement set up, everyone is ready to go. Everyone's ready to go. And so it's really in service of their coaching engagement after that. So I always do that ahead of time. Did that help? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. All righty. So I think we are ready to do an activity. Who's ready for an activity? I need to see yes and energy. What wasn't shared earlier is that there was a time in my life when I was a preschool teacher and I worked with a lot of teenagers. So I start with that high energy and ready to go. So I'm always looking for that. So we're gonna do an exercise. In a minute, you're gonna be broken into groups of about 4 or 5. I have three short case studies, and we'll drop those in the chat as well. You better access a document that has them on them. And in your breakout, I'm gonna give you about 15 minutes to be able to go through them and go through as many as you can. They're short. There's a few questions. You want to note your questions. And then when we come back, we'll have a few people share on each of the case studies. Now, here's another thing. Because we're in a group of coaches, be sure you take the time in the beginning to introduce yourself, where you are, share contact information with each other. That's one of the greatest parts about being part of ICF, right? Is that we're able to build connections. So be sure you do that as well. And so I think we're going to be, here's the dropping in the chat. Here are the 3 case studies. You should be able to open up that document.
Yeah, so just a doubt, Jen, when you were mentioning a little bit of clarity, you said you will be meeting them again midway, right? So, I mean, the sponsors or the people, right?
Yes.
So is it for recontracting or what exactly happens there?
It's a great question. So what I do is I kind of schedule these check-ins, and I always do them for short, like 25-30 minutes, because sponsors are usually so busy. But it's an opportunity for me to what I found is it's an opportunity to kind of check in on how the engagement is going. If there's any insight, usually the coachee knows that this is happening. It's just that check-in point. It also allows me to gently remind sort of some of all these things we're talking about around the engagement. A lot of times when I'm in an organization, I'm working on a couple of different fronts, not just the one-on-one coaching. And so it's that opportunity. What I've found, it allows the sponsor to, if they're not engaged, feel a bit more engaged. And the second, that it allows me to make sure that if there are anything that's come up, we can address it right away so that it doesn't wait till the end. And I always make it very short, 25-30 minutes, very, very short. It's really very pithy. I set an agenda. It's very short and brief. So did that help?
Yes. Because I'm in the midst of doing something and, you know,
Yeah.
there's always this HR wants a report. So I do what Meetu suggested. I actually talk to my coachee, I'm in regular connect, and say, this is what I'm sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you comfortable with this? Do you need? And then usually we, as you said, co-create that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
what to communicate, and then we
So
just.
Aruna and Jen, what I do is to explicitly agree with HR that I will copy the coachee when I send the report, and I agree. We co-create the report and we put them in the loop right away, so that there is no real, gray area for them.
Yeah.
Yes, I have one more question, Jen. Maybe I can put it later also. This confidentiality, how does it work in the reverse? Sometimes the HR base has its own narrative based on the 360-degree feedback or Hogan or something, and they come up with this needs to be improved and all that, as you said, expectations. And then how much do we share with the coachee?
Yeah.
So your also, Aruna,
Yes,
you just somewhere in the second half of the session, please reiterate CCUs will be issued only for those who attend the maximum time in the session.
Okay.
Right? Because there are a lot of people I see either getting dropped or joining late, and they shouldn't really come back and say, you need to validate with a Zoom attendance record with a certain percentage.
We usually put a ballpark figure of 80%, right?
Yeah, no, 80 is what I had in mind. So just validate that before we issue the certificates.
Also, because the breakout room is open, some people might think that this is the end of the conversation, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen, we were talking about the confidentiality part. The reverse reverse loop or closing the loop. How do we tackle, deal with it? Or
what that the So let me share. So the persons have maybe an evaluation done like through an instrument, and the coachee has the results, right? But the question is, they don't know that you know that HR gave you the results. Oh, I talk about that stuff. I always say that up front. I just make sure everyone knows that I had the results. So I always will say, I understand you had a 360, and it will be clear up front that it was shared with me.
No, the narrative the HR gives us.
Oh, the narrative they give you. Oh, what their review is of it. Oh, you don't actually see the report, but it's what HR told you. Oh, I just hold that lightly. I just hold that like, because again, when I'm going into my engagement with the client, I'm embodying my coaching mindset, right? And so if it feels, usually from my experiences, when that comes up, it's because they're trying to make a promotion, or they're trying to address an issue. And so to me, it would, even before I'd start the engagement, I would pose that question. How does coaching fit into the bigger picture here? What's the, are there certain, I just ask the questions very directly up front, which requires that level of courage, right? Because
Me too raised her hand.
Hi,
I'll
Jen.
put the message now saying that we are closing in 1 minute.
Okay.
Jen, I had a question for
Sure.
you. That have you ever come across a coaching conversation where you had to break the confidentiality because of the said reasons? Like with the so many mental health issues going on, was there ever a time
Yes.
that, or when can we do that?
Yeah. So I have thankfully not run into that kind of a situation, but I am very clear up front that there are two things that are going to break the confidentiality. Number one is if they're, a threat or harm to themselves or someone else. And the second is if there's something happening illegal with the organization that I learn about. I'm very clear about those two up front. Everybody knows that they're the two areas. And thankfully, I've not had any issues. However, I know colleagues that have, and they just are true to what they say up front. So those are the two that I always say for everybody. These are the two ways that will break confidentiality: threat and harm to yourself or others, and then secondly, that there's something illegal or illicit happening with the organization.
Thank you, Jen.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yes, I'm aware sometimes when there is an issue of mental health or you observe something in the client, that can be actually highlighted, right? It doesn't come under confidentiality.
Yeah,
because
if there's an issue.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think I'm also, I really want to also name that I'm coming from a very US centric approach as well, right? There's the cultural context of things. And so there might be things that are different. And so to also know but those are the two that I say, which feel like they're quite universal. So welcome back, everyone. I hope your conversations were spirited and energetic. And I'm imagining you probably didn't have enough time, some of the groups. But I would love to hear in our time. We're not going to go around to every group, but if anyone, we could look at what I'll do. Maybe I'll show them on the. Let's look at the first scenario. Let me share my screen. I'm hoping everyone can see it, right? So the first scenario that we looked at, can everyone see that on their screen? Thumbs up? Yes? No? Yes. Okay, perfect. So the first scenario, right? You've been coaching several leaders in an organization, and a senior leader who previously sponsored coaching for 2 of her team members asked you to take on a third. Okay, and during that discovery call, you learn that the new leader is on a performance plan, and likely they're on their way out of their role. And the sponsor wants coaching to demonstrate that everything was done before the termination. So how do you proceed? What boundaries or conditions would you set before accepting the engagement, if you accept it at all? And so anyone can come off mute. You could raise your hand and share what were the insights from your group.
Yeah, I can come up, please, if you don't mind, because this is the only case I could take with my group. There was a general consensus that this is not a coaching session. It is unethical to proceed with a coaching session or whatever intervention when at the end it is pre-decided to take a negative action against the coachees. In addition, it is unethical and against the code of ethics of ICF as well to deceive the coachee. So the only action that can take here is to make a meeting between the coachee and the sponsor to agree together on the expected outcome from the coaching session in advance. Other than that, I wouldn't accept the case upfront. Thank you.
You wouldn't take it. Yeah, thank you. So either have really clear agreements or you wouldn't accept it up front. Got it. Okay, I see another hand.
Hi.
Yes, please.
So I had two cases, same scenario, where the client was not, the coachee was not informed that they are on their way out. They were in a PIP, performance improvement plan, but was not informed that the coaching was a process for the way out. So I had to decline that coaching engagement because they were very clear that they do not want the coachee to know about it. In the second scenario, another organization, I had a similar case where the employee was in a performance improvement plan. However, the improvement plan had coaching as an offering, saying that we are going to put you through 3 months of coaching to see if you will be able to navigate these behavioral issues that we have identified in you. If you come out of it, then you are in the job. If you do not come out of it, you're out of the job. And they had another set of goals that they had to deliver, blah, blah, blah. So in that case, because the sponsor and the coachee are clear on this engagement, I took up this engagement because there was clarity, there was consensus, and there was a clear, rules and things. So
I really appreciate that. Yeah, and really, this is where there's like these no right or wrong, black or white. I mean, I think there's some things that are very clear, right? However, it's also what we do and how we show up. So for me, I tend not to coach people around transition plans. I've learned over time, I'm not their greatest coach, right? I'm a better coach to others. And that's where, when we were talking earlier about, do I coach someone ahead of time? I always coach people. And I've had experiences where that's come out. So yeah, I see one. Me too. Would you like to go ahead, please?
Yes, one experience I had was about they really valued the person and they wanted the person to grow. And at times, like I did ask whether it's just a mandate to tick mark, that the person has been coached. So if that is the case, then it leads us nowhere. It's just a task that has to be performed and the decision is always taken. So it's always good to know what's the agenda when they are doing the sponsored coaching. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get into the second scenario. So let me share my screen again. I'm guessing everyone can see it. So this is the caught in the middle, right? That you're facilitating a group coaching program for mid-level managers now. And it's at a government agency. And in one of the sessions, a participant shares tension with their supervisor, who also happens to be the sponsor of the engagement. And shortly after, the sponsor reaches out and says that they've heard there's a dynamic worth exploring, and then starts to ask for specifics. So how do you honor the group's confidentiality while maintaining the sponsor's trust? And what should have been clarified up front? And how might you reset the expectation now? So which group got to this one? And if your group didn't, but you have a thought, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, we did discuss this, and what was discussed was you need to clarify upfront with the sponsor that whatever comes in the group searching session will not be shared. And they can follow it up with a survey or their one-on-ones and check-ins. And I haven't done this for a government agency, but I have done it for organizations.
Yes. Yeah. So you're really designing that alliance ahead of time. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can chime in for our group. We, I think there was some questions of the details of the scenario that we also debated. But that one part of this, or one idea, would be that at some point in time, if there is an issue, this issue of tension that is brought up in the group, to ultimately have a meeting that includes both the sponsor and the team together, so that it gets to be shared with each other, by each other, rather than through me as the coach, or us, one of us as the coach. And that way you're helping to facilitate that conversation versus be the one that is, navigating confidentiality on the side. And so that as part of it. But also we discussed the expectations up front and being clear about those. And so if you need to then reinforce those in the middle, to be able to say to the sponsor that that's not something you can share, that's not, just be able to re-engage or re-enroll them in what the confidentiality agreement was to begin with, because that's not information that you're here to give them.
Yeah. Yeah.
A question that I had about this, Jen, was the way that this was phrased sounded like if the sponsor has heard something right after that conversation happened, that potentially there's a leak in confidentiality through somebody in the group.
Good
And
catch.
that brings up its own issue and potentially needs to be addressed with the group. So that was just sort of another layer that we were playing around with.
Yeah. Yeah. Great catch, Amelia. And what's really, and I love that, what's required here is courage, right? To be able to sort of actually figure out. And isn't that wonderful that we have experiences coaching about deep listening, right? The listening about what's being said and then what else is happening, right? What the other energy is in the room and speaking to that. And so I'll share, this one's very, very near and dear and familiar to me because this comes from an experience that I've had, and it required me to really address that. There seems to be something in your culture around trust, right? We kind of had alluded to it. And so it opened up some discussions around what was eroding trust in the organization. Because not just because someone didn't want to say something to someone, but because someone did, right? And so I always say there's the session, and then there's the meeting before the meeting and the meeting in the back room. We all know those, right? We have the meeting before the meeting. Any of us who comes from working in corporate spaces, we know what those are. And I'm often I like to be on the side of trust because it comes back to my personal mission, right? My personal mission is that we don't have toxic work environments. So yeah, good catch on that too, right? It's really looking at everything, like what's happening and then what's happening underneath. All right, let's look at the third one. I'm hoping some group.
I also feel,
Yeah.
if I may add here, that
Sure.
what Amelia said, she's part of my group, that also being able to speak our truth, when I think there's a very strong instinct that as coaches we have, because we're observing all the time, we are used to listening, used to seeing the words that are not being said, et cetera, and just being able to trust your instinct and speak your truth in the moment and saying, I'm hearing this and I may be wrong, but I'd like to voice it nevertheless, to be completely clear in my mind. So you're just completely baggage free. You're not having any doubts as you're getting into the engagement or continuing with the engagement.
Yeah, really great insight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it often requires that level of that self-management, right? So I'm a people pleaser in recovery. It's really hard to address things. I'm constantly in recovery. And so to be able to, though, to your point, is like, then it's really in service of the clients that I'm working with. It's really in service, being able to say that. So let's read the third one. Maybe there was a group that got to it. So the third scenario, which is the confidentiality dilemma. So you're coaching multiple leaders, you're in a mid-sized organization, and the HR sponsor is highly involved and requests regular progress updates, and even asks if they can join the coaching session, right? You might be like, I've never had that happen. This is ripped from the headlines. This has happened before, right? And meanwhile, the coachees are hesitant to open up, fearing that their share will be passed along. So how do you navigate this situation? What agreements can you establish or revisit to uphold that confidentiality while still engaging the sponsor? So did any group get to this and have an insight? I see a hand up. Yes, please.
So we didn't get to this, but what's coming to me instantly is very, very valuable. In every coaching session, the standard, pieces of information that I do say is that whatever you say remains confidential, and I'm here present for you. What's on your mind today, right? This is the standard. Having somebody else join the conversation is definitely not possible, and that's something I want to say with courage at the outset itself. As regards, somebody saying that they want to join the coaching session, and if they say that, no, that's something we do, then there has to be an agreement. This is like a group coaching in that case. Mm-hmm. And if the coachee is okay, then that's something that they need to agree upon. But otherwise, there's no way that somebody can walk into a coaching session and pretend that that's okay. Even if they're the sponsor, even if they're the boss, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. And oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I was in a group along with Mr. Arun, and we both had the discussion. I think in the beginning itself, when we are designing the alliance, if you know a little bit more about this HR person or the HR department, their behavior, I think it's better to get all three of us together to very clearly voice our boundaries at the beginning itself. So in public, in front of the coachee and the sponsor, the HR person, we make it very clear that, this is not acceptable. I mean, there's no question of you joining, for any sponsor for that matter, joining the proceedings of a coaching session. Yeah, other thing we thought of was doing mid-course, during the coaching journey in the midterm, there can be a joint session.
Yeah.
In which if the coachee is willing to share whatever has been his progress, he is more free to talk about it in that midterm review, whatever you call it, of the journey of the coaching, not the contents of the coaching. So that is very, very clear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, please.
Now, I think in a stakeholder center coaching, like how 𝐒𝐩𝐞𝐫 said, the mid check-ins do happen, and it's automatically part of the process. If it is not a stakeholder check-in process, stakeholder centered coaching, then I think we can set it up in the agreement. And if the coachee is inclined to it, then it can be done. However, I think HR's role in a coaching engagement needs to be predefined and clarified. If not, as coaches, I don't think we need to get stressed with their reactive tendencies because this needs to be predefined and clearly stated. What is the manager's role? What is the HR role? What is the coach's role? What is the coachee's role? How many check-ins we have? How is it going to happen? If it is defined with timeline and everything, with the clarity, we can navigate this issue.
And so much of, and Amelia, I'll go to you 1 second, so much of the coaching engagement is what happens before and how you set it up. And so in situations where I've gone through, and you kind of know intuitively as you go through the process and the conversations to actually even get in the door, whatever all the pieces of the puzzle, I may require check-ins. Even if my intuition is telling me, I may require them as part of the engagement, because I just feel like especially if it's someone new that I'm working with, I will do that. So Amelia, please.
Although I think one sort of component that I would add, aside from the setting those clear expectations up front, because I agree that feels very important, and that we establish check-ins if there will be check-ins, and so everybody has a shared expectation. But that in those check-ins, I have worked with my clients to say, you will be the one that is sharing in this session together. I am not going to do the talking, and really put the onus on them so that they are in control of what they share and how they share it, and be willing to support them in preparing for that meeting if they want my support in doing that. And so it keeps us in partnership around what is being discussed and shared with the sponsor when those meetings happen.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. One thing I do is I use one 360 instrument. In fact, I'm going through that right now with a new client. Everybody's taking the 360. It's their results are their own. However, they know up front that they are going to be sharing out with their direct manager, and then in a team coaching, 3 insights from their 3. What are 3 insights I learned about myself? And what are 2 things that I'm going to be focusing on working on over the next couple months? And so it actually is a way for them to hold things and for them to really be in that driver's seat. Here are the things here's the insights. Here's what I didn't know you thought about me. So that's one of the ways that I use that too, Amir, to your point of having them really drive what's happening. So I know that we are coming towards the end. I know we have 10 minutes left. Did I get that right? Am I watching the clocks right? Yes, thumbs up. Okay. And I wanted to first really just say thank you to everyone. I feel like this is something I could spend many days talking about and engage in conversations about, although our time is limited together. I wanted to just kind of wrap up with a few of the core areas and some of the takeaways. Just the first, that the terrain of organizational coaching is never the same in every organization, right? We might see patterns of things, but we always have to be in that coaching mindset to be able to intuitively navigate what the right next steps are. That today we went over some of those key tension points that come up in engagements. And then we also looked at how to navigate them with integrity, both looking at how we would from a core competency standpoint, and then looking through the various case studies. I'm hoping that this really has helped you walk away with a little more of a strong foundation and some ideas, both from what was shared and then also from each other. I know that at the end of the day, that coaching in organizations is really about building those powerful containers where trust and clarity can really come from. And before we jump off today, I would love to hear, and you can drop it in the chat or you can come off, Mike, I'd love to hear if there's something you'll do differently in your coaching engagements out of today? Is there something different, one insight you might have, or more than one, but one is great too. And you're welcome to come off mute if you prefer to share that way. You can also drop it in the chat. But I'd love to hear insights that came out of today.
You're also welcome to come on camera so that I can click some pics, as you say.
Wonderful.
I think if I can add, Jen,
Yeah.
one of the key takeaways is that confidentiality is the ultimate.
Yeah.
No compromise on that. Otherwise, coaching will fail.
Yeah, confidentiality.
Yeah, again, clarifying the role of each of the tripartite connection, the sponsor and the coachee and the coach, clarifying the roles in advance. And there is a statement that I heard from you, which is, I forgot, I'm going to say the meaning, which is re-clarifying again the agreement, the prior agreement. I forgot the statement now. Sorry for that.
Nope,
Thank you.
that's great. Revisiting it for sure. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else being more clear about expectations up front? I see in the chat here. Thank you. Well, I really want to thank everybody. I really want to thank the ICF chapter. I always see that every chapter is like a sister chapter to the one I belong to in Los Angeles. I'm so grateful for being here. I've dropped in the chat a couple of links. My social media links, please connect with me. I dropped in the link for the Leadership Vault. This is my gift. It's 100 resources that I've curated together for leaders. Please use it, access it, do whatever you'd like. I also have a LinkedIn group called the Coaches Salon. It's recently launched. It's going to be a small curated group for coaches. And I do have a coaching alignment checklist. If you'd like that, you can just shoot me an email and I'll send it to you. It's just something I've curated together for myself. And with that, again, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed being here. This has been such a great way to start my day this morning. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the team.
Thank you, Jen. That was an awesome session. So now I welcome Meetu to thank all the participants and close the session. Meetu, over to you.
Thank you, Aruna. Oh, what a dynamic and so valuable session, the conversations we had. And I feel very privileged to extend our deepest thanks on behalf of the Chennai chapter, Jen. This webinar was very insightful and inspiring. And we are so grateful to, where you pointed the nitty-gritties. If we don't notice, we'll take notice of that in future. I felt really great when you started the session by including us with your poll responses to feel the pulse and the breakout room exercise, though I couldn't join, but I still could have those insights and your special perspectives on confidentiality, transparency. You have given us new ways to think about this topic related to how we can elevate our coaching practice and strengthen our competency with the core value. So coaching is developmental and not disciplinary, and is my takeaway. And some crucial points related to integrity, like the situations are not bad luck, but showing what needs to show up with ethical practices was very powerful for me. We do not share info without the permission, and we pause when we think that we need to walk away from such an engagement. So thank you for your fantastic anchor also, Aruna, for hosting Kannan, for steering this conversation so well. Your questions like how we can be more confidential, maintaining trust and safety from the audience, and some experiences shared by our audience. So that was very helpful. And as we wrap up, we hope that this conversation inspires, motivates for us to bring more points of ethics and integrity and confidentiality, which ICF stands for. We are able to take this forward. And we look forward to seeing you at future events and continuing these inspiring discussions. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. And special thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us.